We need automation that actually feels human. Real unlock is knowing which buyer signals actually matter.
Welcome back to the HubSpot Hints Podcast, where we talk with HubSpot partners and marketing agency founders about what's actually working behind the scenes. So today I'm really excited about this one. Joining us is the founder and CEO of Little Bird Marketing. She's also the host of the Ponderings from the Perch podcast. I love that name, by the way. And someone that a lot of you maybe have probably recognized from LinkedIn for her takes on B2B marketing and a lot of the stuff that she shares there. So Priscilla McKinney, welcome to the show. Happy to have you with us.
Thanks so much, Andy. And I'm saying, if you love this podcast, I'm a fellow podcaster. This is a labor of love. It's really hard. You need to stop right now, give Andy some love, go give him a review wherever you're listening, and do a good deed for the day. So make it 5 stars. Tell him I said to make it 5 stars.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Let's start off by just having you tell us a little bit about Little Bird Marketing and what you guys do, what you kind of focus on, and then we'd love to kind of dive into some of the strategies that make you guys unique and kind of set you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. Little Bird Marketing is a boutique marketing agency. We specialize in B2B. And really, the biggest thing I could say we specialize in is pipeline building and lead generation. And the whole point of it is revenue generation, right? So I think in marketing, sometimes we get a little caught up with, we got to make this widget fixed, or we've got to, make HubSpot sing, or we've got to make this graphic look great. But what we're doing is we're trying to grow revenue, and we cannot lose sight of that. And so that's super important for me. That's something that I think sometimes gets a little bit lost in the doing of the marketing.
Yeah. And as a fellow marketer, I've also run into that same challenge, which is like you get your creative juices flowing and you just want to do these creative things, these creative campaigns. But if you don't have a system in place that kind of reins you in and pulls you back to the point of it, which is revenue that you brought up, you can end up, spinning your wheels. You can end up spending times on side quests and things that aren't easily tied back to a result.
Yeah. And I think, the proliferation of so many freelancers out there. And listen, I'm not opposed to freelancers. They have an amazing place, especially if you're a 1-person shop or a 2-person, just a small shop. Having a freelancer is amazing. And we're a large shop, and I have a couple of freelancers that we use constantly. So believe me when I say I'm not dissing freelancers, but sometimes because we live in this proliferation of a freelance world, you can get someone to go do one thing for you, but that person might not be clued into the full strategy. And so you have to be very careful with the way people work. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. You need to make sure that everybody who's participating, salary or freelance, is completely clued into what the overall goal is. And that is really key, I think, to success.
Yeah. And I've seen this as well, where if you have maybe a small business that doesn't have the resources to have their own in-house team, they might want to use a freelancer, but they might not necessarily know exactly what they're doing themselves. And so when they give a task to a freelancer, it might be, kind of without a little bit of that direction or strategy that it really needs. And that's where agencies come into play, because it's like, no, like we can holistically come up with a strategy and a process and help put these things in place and these tools in place to help your business grow and get revenue. And Little Bird Marketing, you guys have sort of your own strategy, right? You have this SOAR strategy. Could you kind of walk us through that and how that works?
Yeah, for sure. And anybody listening can crib it. You don't have to work with me. I'd love to work with you if we're going to be a great fit. But this is something that everybody can take today and immediately look at the plans that they have in place and say, is this plan really going to soar? Is it really going to take flight? Is this idea going to basically help your brand get out of the cage, right? These are all the ways that we talk at Little Bird Marketing because, we like to stay on brand. But you can take this immediately, SOAR. And just to back up 1 minute, I would say that a lot of times I find people are doing the right marketing, but they're not doing them in the right order. And that's why they're not being successful. So I'm not saying necessarily stop what you're doing, but go back maybe and rejigger what you're doing. So keep that in mind as I give you this framework. Or it's super simple. S stands for strategy. O is from organization, A for accountability, and R for repeatability. This is very important. First, we have to get the strategy set. And the biggest part of the strategy is, who is the audience? People do not spend enough time on very, very excellent persona work. I have so many free guides at Littlebird Marketing/resources. Go take everything you can from me for free. And there's like templates, there's guides about it. You have to know not only who your most ideal client is, but how they are suffering. If you can understand how they are suffering, you can start doing things that help them. And being helpful builds rapport. So that's strategy. So, and of course, there's a lot more to strategy. There's competitive landscape and everything else. But let's just keep it simple. Start with the simple things that build foundations. O is organization. We happen to use Trello. I don't care what you use. Monday, whatever it is. Spreadsheets are unwieldy, but if that's your thing, go for it. But it needs to be organized. And I don't mean organized, which a lot of people like, oh, I have a list and I know exactly what the calendar is. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about. I'm also talking about organizing something to understand clearly who is doing what and when. When is this actually due, right? It also means that when you start a project, where's the project brief? Did you communicate to everybody what we were trying to achieve in the end? A lot of times marketers are good at just starting a project and they'll organize it for themselves, but not in a way that anybody could come alongside and help them. And then you see somebody leaves the marketing department and nobody knows what's going on. So organizing it, making sure. One little tidbit there is that organizing it also has to do with asking the question, do we have the bandwidth? If there's not someone available to do it during this time, we cannot organize it. You can make a nice list, but it's not going to get done. And then accountability is that someone, right after we finish the marketing meeting, they go and have their marketing meeting outside the doors. That's the marketing meeting number 2 that the leaders are not privy to, and everybody goes and talks about it. And then someone has an idea. Oh, well, we should do this or we should do that. Now, they didn't bring it up in the meeting, right? But someone eventually even maybe has a great idea and brings it back after the meeting. It's like, hey, I think we should go to this show, and here's why. Great. The issue is hold things accountable to the S and the O. So if we can then say it fits the strategy and it can be organized, also bandwidth, then it's accountable to the program and we can add it. If not, the answer is no. That's where the flow chart ends. And I do think that this framework oftentimes gives people the right and maybe the permission slip to say no to certain marketing programs, campaigns, tactics, whatever, right? Because everybody wants to do everything, but we have a limited budget. And then the last thing is repeatability. And I won't go into that a whole lot. That's about reporting. It's about, if we did all these things through the year, do we have any ability to see what worked and what didn't? If we wanted to double down, triple down on something that was amazing, what thing is it? Do we know? Because what did we record? So a lot of people come to me at the very beginning and they want to talk about KPIs. And, I don't like using acronyms. That's key performance indicators. But they want a dashboard or a data. I'm like, for what? What are we measuring? And I love to measure. Not everything can be measured, but you can't talk about that first. You have to get SOA done before you can actually then, in maybe a year, talk about repeatability, right? So SOAR, take it today, use it, improve your marketing. You'll be glad you did.
Quick shout out to our sponsor, Hintable. If you're using HubSpot and it still feels a little robotic, Hintable helps fix that. Hintable lets you add interactive video directly into your HubSpot workflows. So instead of generic follow-ups, your contacts hear from a real human with buttons, branching, and intent signals synced back to HubSpot. Think of it as a way to humanize HubSpot without breaking your existing workflow. So if you want to see what that looks like, go check out hintable.com. Yeah. I love that framework. And I can see how some of the mistakes that I made early in my career could have been probably preemptively solved by following some type of framework like that. You're a young marketer and you get an idea or directive from the CEO and you don't really have a system in place or a framework to push back and say no to something that could be steering you just kind of in the wrong direction. I'd like to dig in just a little bit into maybe the strategy part and identifying and finding those personas and those target audiences and things, and kind of that research element. I spent a few years in sort of the startup world and worked at an agency where we primarily helped startups. So these are early young companies, small companies that are trying to find their way and they're trying to find product market fit. How do you help those younger companies that maybe don't exactly, maybe they have a few customers and they have some things going on, but maybe they haven't quite nailed product market fit yet? Like, how would you help them in that process of trying to identify the right personas.
Yeah. Well, okay. First of all, I'm gonna back up and let you off the hook about you saying that sometimes you've made mistakes when you were a young marketer. Well, let me tell you, some old marketers make some of these mistakes too. And we have to have a team that comes around us and says, Priscilla, remember SOAR? So it's just you got to have the framework forever. So we're human. That's just the way it is. So I'm totally gonna just assuage you of any guilt you have on that. As far as product market fit, it's interesting that you frame it that way because I think what a lot of people do that is the mistake is that they don't talk about product market fit. They talk about building the product. They talk about how beautiful the product. They talk about the special little snowflake their product is. And this is just the reality of people who create something awesome is that they think it's awesome. They're building something, but often those things were not built first with the audience in mind. They were built out of an interesting idea somebody had. So there have probably not been a lot of product market fit conversations. But once we get there and we are having product market fit, I think the best thing that they can do is get as close as possible to the user. And there's a lot of interesting ways to do that. I specialize in doing marketing for market research companies. That's like 70% of my business.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so I am in that world a lot by training. I'm a cultural anthropologist, so I find it interesting to talk with people and see what their problems are. And so I do think there's a need for the engineer, the founder, the creator, whoever it is who's kind of removed now from who's using it to get as close as possible to the person who's using it. However, you need to really be careful about two things, what you ask and who you ask. So I'll give you a good example. You and I are friends. And if I call you and say, Andy, I have this great idea, it's this app that does this and blah, blah, blah. What do you think? Well, let's just think about the relationship here. You're my friend. You're a colleague. Your job right now is to support me. And so you're going to say, oh, wow, Priscilla, you're so smart. And I really love the idea. Right.
Mhm.
So I've asked the wrong person. I've also asked the wrong question. Even if I could get closer, maybe you're somebody who has launched a lot of products and you've worked at agencies that have launched a lot and done a lot of product market fit, and you're the right person for me to ask. But I ask you, how do you like it? Instead of asking, Andy, are you ready to invest $250,000 with my company? And then Andy's like, oh, now I'm critically
Mhm.
thinking about your app, right?
Mhm.
And so I think what happens a lot is that people are asking the wrong questions to the wrong people and they keep quote unquote improving their product or doing something else, or they'll go talk to a marketing firm. They're like, oh, the way that works is by getting, video out on LinkedIn. Okay, well, that may be true for a particular company. That may not be true for yours. And so then I see people mimicking what other people are doing. Oh, well, we did an explainer video we put out on TikTok. Okay, can I just ask a quick question? Is your actual user on TikTok? Oh, no, 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 they don't use it. And I'm like, okay, then I'm sorry, why are we using viral videos on TikTok? Oh, because that's what so and so said and it really works. Works for what?
Yeah.
You know? And so people start mimicking, all kinds of marketing actions because they see it quote unquote work, but that's not necessarily what will work for your product. That's not the place where you could really talk fully about your product and get someone to buy it. So, for example, my audience is a B2B audience. Do they have Facebook accounts? Sure. What are they doing when they're on Facebook? Talking to their mom, right? But they have LinkedIn accounts. What are they doing when they're on their LinkedIn accounts? They're thinking about their business. I need to market to them to the mind state, right? So they are in the thought process of business when they're out on LinkedIn. So I should reach them there. So just because I can go find my audience on Facebook doesn't mean that's the right place for me to put my marketing. So do you see how those questions are
Mhm.
really nuanced? And then
Mhm.
people, instead of getting really focused because they don't have a framework, they kind of just do what other people are doing. And the problem with that is that you don't know if the other guy is losing his shorts on that campaign. Right? Because you
Mhm.
don't see the back end to it. And so we're not really asking the right questions and we're not asking them to the right people.
Yeah, I love that. I love the point that you made about how you have to figure out exactly who you're talking to, before you get to the fun stuff, which is
Mhm,
all the marketing people, like the fun stuff is being creative and coming up with campaigns and writing creative copy. Like we love getting to the fun stuff.
mhm.
But if you skip the step that comes before that, which is kind of the research part. You try to maybe skip some steps or take shortcuts. What you end up doing is following templates that are kind of table stakes, kind of like level playing field templates. And this is something we talk about in the HubSpot community a lot, which is if you just use HubSpot's templates and kind of everything that's comes standard without really considering the end user and the end customer,
Mm-hmm.
then you don't have an edge over anybody. You're just going to be noise, right? And you brought up LinkedIn as a particular strategy that can work for certain businesses. What do you recommend as far as LinkedIn strategy goes for businesses that their audience is on LinkedIn?
Okay, well, I don't want to get death threats or anything, but stop spending money on LinkedIn ads. Number one, I have yet to see this really be a winner. And that's me saying that with a very niche audience. Now, maybe there's a post you want to boost for a particular reason, but actual campaigning, it becomes noise, right? You know how to go to your feed right now and skip right past a sponsored or promoted, right? Your brain already knows how to do it. Our brains are amazing, right? And what you're trying to do, I don't care what social media you're on, you're trying to get a scroll stopping moment, right? So the doom scrolling that everybody's doing, how do you get someone to stop? Well, I don't even like playing that game. People come to me like, Priscilla, how do we get them to stop? And I'm like, okay, I think that's the wrong question. The question is, why do we keep putting stuff in a feed trying to get people to stop? I'm not saying that's a horrible strategy. It just can't be our only thing, especially for how we work with B2B. I'm not selling $20 widgets. In fact, I don't know how to. If you come to me and you have like, look, Priscilla, we have this lipstick. We need you to sell more of it. I'm like, I am not your person. I don't know how to do that. You come to me and you say, look, Priscilla, we sell $300,000 market research projects to enterprise clients. Okay, I'm talking to you now, right? So something from $10,000 up, I'm your person, right? But any of those kinds of things requires relationship building and rapport, right? And so if you're coming out to LinkedIn, it's not going to be do this one thing and get a return. And that is a transactional mindset that a lot of people have with marketing. And what I teach, and I teach a 12-week course and I bring whole cohorts through something in 12 weeks. And it is about changing their own mindset about what LinkedIn is to begin with. It's not a place where I can just finally just scream at somebody and broadcast and get them to finally notice me. I'm over here, come over here. That is not the game I'm trying to play. I'm trying to come out and be a helpful person. I'm trying to show them that I understand what they're going through. I'm mindful of who they're trying to impress. I'm wondering what is keeping them up at night on a Sunday night and it just cannot get to sleep. What is actually getting them up, motivating them on Monday morning to come to work? I want to talk about those things. And so coming out to LinkedIn, you want to create entire persona where you are seen as the person who's most helpful about that. And just for example, what I just did on your show with SOAR, people don't need to work with me. I'm not for everybody, but there's no reason why as an expert, I can't give that framework out and help someone along the way, right? They may not be my ideal audience, but they might say, oh my gosh, I've got to get Eduardo to listen to this show because he is at a $6 million company and he would probably love this. Let me turn him on to it. And you got to trust that. You got to build the rapport and do that for a long term. Now, obviously I teach it for 12 weeks, so I got a lot to say about it. But the general idea is that you need to know your persona again before you even go out to LinkedIn, because you're not there to broadcast. You're there to narrowcast to your most ideal client. What could be the most helpful? Make them come to you for anything. And this is the reaction you want to have. Priscilla, I really don't know exactly what you do. All I know is that I really want to work with you. What would that look like? Okay, now I've done a good job on LinkedIn. Now I get it. Now I've earned the right to pitch my services and explain how I could come around to it. So that's the shortest version I can give you to that question.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love your perspective on LinkedIn and how to use it, because I think it's pretty obvious when people are kind of abusing it, right?
Oh.
And the way LinkedIn is set up is different than email. I mean, they have pretty rigid and strict guidelines in order to reduce the amount of spam that's on there. It still can occur, but it is a place for human interaction, human to human interaction. And so I love your thoughts around setting up yourself as sort of an expert in whatever service you're trying to provide. And I love that you offer additional resources for free to help people. For those that are listening, where can they find you? Where can they get a hold of you? If they're not following you, where
Yeah.
do they go?
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm the person who answers my LinkedIn messages. I'm the person connecting. I have about 20,000 followers. And it's Priscilla, Priscilla McKinney, McKinney. And you'll also notice me because I have a period in front of my name. And that is specifically, here's another gift for you, so that I can see the bots. I can understand who's just using a bot in order to reach me. So if you are using a bot, then I can just delete you. And so that I'm only engaging with people because that's what I'm out there to do, engage with people. Now, I know people are going to complain and say like, but Priscilla, I use a robot in order to make the connection. And then I talk with you and I'm like, okay, that's fine. You can say whatever you want. This is my prerogative. I don't want to talk with the bot. So, everybody to each his own. I'm not a LinkedIn police. Do whatever you want. But I've had to, rejigger LinkedIn so that I'm not sitting there basically the brunt end of, just stupid robot things. Every time I get a LinkedIn mail that's paid, boom, boom, boom. I just don't even look at it. This is unsolicited garbage. So just because I'm out on LinkedIn doesn't mean that I have to go do now. Now LinkedIn's not my boss. I don't have to go now take care of their system, right? I need to go
Hmm.
out, be my own boss and take care of me. So find me on LinkedIn for sure, but littlebirdmarketing.com/resources. There are not only the persona guides, there's all kind of social calendars. And there's also, if you go over to training and consulting and you go look at my course, actually on that page for my course, there is a free 17-minute video that is a mindset shift that would help you about how to come out to LinkedIn in a much better way. It's not a part of the course, but it is a really helpful reset. And that would be really good to come into LinkedIn differently so that you get different results. I will say this, it's not a transactional one for one or whatever. But a couple weeks ago, I posted just a short little video, very impromptu, explaining what I do as a fractional CMO. And I was just sitting in this chair back here. And I was like, well, people ask me all the time, what does it mean, a fractional CMO? I've heard of it, but whatever. I explained it in under a minute. And I literally got a message from a guy I'd been connected with. So I know people around him. I had never talked with him before. And he goes, Priscilla, I'm so great at my product. I'm an amazing engineer. I built something amazing. Turns out I'm mediocre at best at marketing. Let's talk. Couple minutes later, $36,000 contract. So, I mean, it happens, but it happens after. Yes, it becomes transactional like that after, but it's because of years of seeding that and people knowing who you are. So he didn't feel like he needed to vet me. He's seen me for years talking fluidly about what I do. And all of a sudden, one thing I said was now relevant to him. So that's, those are some of the free gifts I give out on the resources because if you start those things, they're not magic pills, but they can help you start changing some mindsets so that you can start working a different way and really then reap much bigger results, maybe not tomorrow, but much bigger results in time.
Yeah, I love that. It's a long-term strategy. It's not something, LinkedIn's not something that you can just whip up and, you know, be off to the races day one or maybe even year one. But yeah, it's a long-term strategy to build that that authenticity and the trust, right?
Yeah,
And that's kind of what
absolutely.
it's about.
On the other hand, I'll say I've done the really hard work. And so now I don't waste time on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn 15 minutes a day and I get it done. And I make a lot of money through LinkedIn, but I don't work for LinkedIn. And that's what you have to remember. You don't work for them. You work for you. So making these tools and whether it's AI or LinkedIn or it's HubSpot or whatever it is, you've got to make these tools your slave, not the other way around.
Great way to think about it. Priscilla, thank you so much for joining us and wish you all the best. And hopefully we see you again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm serious, you guys, about giving him a great review on somewhere on a podcast. Like I said, this is a labor of love to do these podcasts. And we just gave you tons of valuable information. Andy, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. Bye.